Hello and welcome to another video. Today we're going to take a look at Hydro Pump Azumarill in the Open Great League. With the addition of Carbink to the Open Great League meta, I was thinking Hydro Pump might become a lot more viable on Azumarill, especially because not only is Hydro Pump good against Carbink, but Carbink is also going to attract a lot of steel types to the Open Great League meta, so we're probably going to see a lot of double steel in the future, and therefore Hydro Pump might become a lot better. It is of course always very difficult to live without Ice Beam or Play Rough, and I do understand why most people run Play Rough Ice Beam on Azumarill, but Hydro Pump definitely came in clutch quite a lot of times. I paired Azumarill with Dunsparce and Shadow Charizard, one Pokemon that's weak to fighting, two that are good against fighting is kind of my idea here as an ABB team, using Azumarill as the safe swap, which is why I'm using Ice Beam as well, because I like Ice Beam when you use it as a safe swap against the grass types, although Lantern becomes very difficult of course, but you have Dunsparce for the Lantern and then Charizard doesn't have to see it. Overall, this team performed quite well for me. Let's take a look at the battles. Going into the first game, of course, we lead into Wall Phase and they safe swap into a Wigglytuff. We already know what's going to happen here. Charizard is the better option against the Wigglytuff, but we're expecting the Shadow Victreebel in the back. Of course we are. Whenever we see a Bastion in the lead, we're expecting the Shadow Victreebel. So I save my Charizard for later, and then I chip the Wigglytuff with Dunsparce. Dunsparce doesn't have the best matchup against Wigglytuff, so I do need to bring in my Azumarill here to finish it off. And also I absolutely have to make sure that I don't lose switch advantage here, because I don't want my Charizard up against Wall Phase, of course. So we put up the shield on the Disarming Voice so they can't charm off down afterwards, and then we go for the Ice Beam after loading up to 99 energy to take out the Wigglytuff. And now they bring back in the Bastion, and this is one situation where Hydro Pump is very nice in Azumarill. This is of course probably the matchup where you want Hydro Pump, because otherwise the Bastion actually beats your water type if you don't have Hydro Pump. We make it to one Hydro Pump, they make it to a Stone Edge, but Azumarill is very tanky, so we can actually take the Stone Edge and then get to yet another Hydro Pump. This will either grab the shield or take them out, which is absolutely amazing for me. It takes them out. I'm looking in the top right corner, and it is the Grass Poison, and it is the Shadow Victreebel. We bring in the Charizard, and that is a good game. Next game, lead into a Sableye. Good lead for Dunsparce. You do win every even shield scenario, but it's kind of a frustrating zero shield scenario, because you have to throw all three moves. They bring in a Noctowl, and because I'm running a very defense-weighted Azumarill, I bring in my Azumarill as the counter swap to the Noctowl, because my Azumarill, being very defense-weighted, gets a bulk point on the wing attacks that allow it to win every even shield scenario and like have a very comfortable matchup against Noctowl generally. They go for the first two Sky attacks. It takes 665 for the Sky attacks, so if I remember correctly, they should be 2 away from the third one here, so we can go for the first Ice Beam, and then we can go for the second Ice Beam as well. Because we're down energy, this might not be as comfortable. Also, I just swapped out because I don't necessarily have to get switch advantage here, but now they will be able to outpace me to 2 moves before I get to another Ice Beam. So I just let the first one go, and then I save my Azumarill for a potential sack later, bring in the Dunsparce to snipe the Noctowl because they had quite a lot of energy still, to take out the Noctowl. And then I realized why you don't want to switch lock your Dunsparce, and why it works so well as a lead and not as like a safe swap or something like that, or in the end. Because when you switch lock your Dunsparce, there might very well be a Medicham in the back, because Medicham is very common in Open Great League, and the Medicham can just farm up so much energy on the Dunsparce. They are forced to throw energy here if they don't want to take another Drill Run, which I don't think they do, and they're forced to throw an entire Psychic because an Ice Punch wouldn't be enough, and yeah, that was probably what they were using when they were going for an entire Psychic. And then they can get to move on Charizard as well. I'm thinking if I let this go, I'm getting Shadow Claw down afterwards. But also the Sableye has a lot of energy, so I have to make a catch here, because they were already at a move. They loaded up to 7 Shadow Claws before swapping out, so they should be 3 away from the next one. So we can go up to right before they get there, bait with the Dragon Claw, but we're not going to outpace the Sableye. We have to go for the catch. I go for one wing attack, my opponent throws in the middle of my fast move, so I can't catch the move. Very nice move by my opponent. Take out my Shadow Charizard, and then they Shadow Claw down my Azumarill. Yeah, switch locking Dunsparce can be very difficult or very dangerous. Next game, lead into a Shadow, a Lowland Sandslash. They bring in a Swampert, we bring in a Azumarill. Once again, I like using a Azumarill as kind of a sponge. This is not really showcasing much of like its movesets right here, although landing a Hydro Pump on a regular Swampert would be quite nice, as they go for the bait and we just call it. As I say, I like to use Azumarill as a sponge. If I can grab a shield advantage out of this, that's absolutely fine by me. They have an Alolan Ninetales in the lead. I don't need Twitch advantage here, so I'm just absolutely fine with them just taking me out. But then they decide to go for yet another bait with a Hydro Pump. And at this point, I'm thinking another Hydro Pump or Hydro Cannon is not enough. So they're probably going to realize that I don't care about my Azumarill. So they're going to go for the nuke this time around. So I shield up their Earthquake, of course, and then go for the Hydro Pump, which is pretty nice. A Play Rough would do about 46%, so it would quite take up the regular Swampert at this point. So that was quite nice. I probably or maybe should swap out as soon as I figure out its charm, because I have 2 better responses in the back, and letting myself get farmed down there might not have been the best play, but yeah, we bring in the Dunsparce because they did swap out in the beginning, so they're probably not going to be weak to Dunsparce in the back, and they are not. They bring in Medicham, we bring in Shadow Charizard, they throw off the 6. In the 2-shield scenario, it can be very difficult or very dangerous to no-shield a potential Ice Punch, but because this could only be an Ice Punch and we are in the 1-shield scenario, they're not going to be able to farm me down like 2-shield and then farm me down after landing the Ice Punch, as I go for a bit of a mistake by going for the Dragon Claw. I thought it might put them into a range where I could roll out them down afterwards, but it didn't, and I can't roll out them down for that range, so I have to take them out with Charizard. I let them get in a few more counters before taking them out to bring myself so low that they're only going to get 1 charm's worth of energy on their Alolan Ninetales, and I'm still going to get off the Blast Burn, as the Blast Burn just one-shots the Alolan Ninetales, and that is a good game. Next game, lead into an Azumarill. We don't really have a response to this. Dunsparce is not the best against this, but the way I like to play against an Azumarill with Dunsparce is just put it into farm range, really, and put it into a range where Charizard can deal with it later on, as long as it doesn't have, like, no shields or the Azumarill has energy. So they go for a Play Rough, and the good thing about Dunsparce is it can take 2 Play Roughs, so they have to, like, after enough bubbles, the 2 Play Roughs will be enough, but we can make it 2-3 Drill Runs. Take this Play Rough as well, at least if you have a very good Dunsparce as I do, and then we can land another Drill Run. I don't really want to let myself get farmed down, and I also like the idea of just saving my Dunsparce for a Sack Swap later. So we bring in a Azumarill after landing the Drill Run, and also Azumarill is in a range where Charizard can handle it later on, so I'm okay with giving away switch advantage here. They go for another Play Rough. I could take them out here, but I think the energy is just more valuable than the amount of health that this Play Rough is going to take away from my Azumarill. So coming out of this with 100 energy seems quite nice. To go for another Play Rough, and then they bring in a Sableye. They don't really have a response to Azumarill. This is a situation where Play Rough would be very nice, but we have to go for an entire Hydro Pump, and that means that they're going to be able to get to a Foul Play before we can get to an Ice Beam. But this will not take out Azumarill. I look at the health of Sableye. It's not quite in farm range for Charizard, but we can put it into farm range. They're switch locked, so we put them into farm range for Charizard with the Ice Beam, and then bring in Charizard to farm them down, come out with a lot of energy, and then they bring in their own Shadow Charizard, and this is not ideal because these wing attacks are doing quite a lot. This is one of the tough things about Shadow Charizard in the 2-shield scenario. Fast move damage is just so oppressive on it, like from pretty much everything. So we go for another Dragon Claw, and I just know they're gonna go for the catch, but I mean, what am I gonna do? I don't think I could wing attack down the Azumarill anyways. I think I had to hope that their switch timer wasn't up. Maybe I could have wing attacked them down, but they catch it on Azumarill, and now they can wing attack down my Charizard, wing attack down my Dunsparce, wing attack down my Azumarill, and that is a good game. Next game lead into a Shadow Granbull. It takes 8 charms for them to get to a move, and it takes 7 rollouts for me to get to 2 moves, so we will get there at the same time. Because they're going to get in a charm as I throw the first one. So I'm anticipating them going for the CMP here, which is why I try to catch it on Azumarill, because Granbull does win CMP. But no, they save the energy on Granbull, and then they bring in Wigglytuff. So we can't go for the Hydro Pump. Wigglytuff is just not going to shield a move from Azumarill. Like, which Wigglytuff would ever shield a move here? They go for the Power Whip, and we can go for a Hydro Pump afterwards to do about half of the Wigglytuff's health. This is a nice... like a nice matchup to have Hydro Pump in, I think, because 2 Hydro Pumps is enough to take it out, but they're not going to allow us to get to 2 Hydro Pumps, so I'd like to put the Wigglytuff into farm range, which is why I go for the Ice Beam, and then they can overfarm a lot, which is not ideal, because now they're going to come out with a lot of energy, or at least quite a bit of energy. I know a Body Slam from Wigglytuff only does about 22 to 23% damage to Dunsparce, so we can take it, hoping they don't go for the Power Whip. They go for the Body Slam. We can save the energy on Dunsparce, swap into Shadow Charizard, get an energy advantage, and then they bring in Galarian Stunfisk. Takes 4 wing attacks to beat Galarian Stunfisk in the 2-shield straight blast burn, but with 2 wing attacks advantage, you need 1 bait. So we go up to right before they get to another Rock Slide, and then we go for the bait. This is game deciding. Do they shield the bait? Yes, they do. And now we can go straight blast burn. My opponent does have a win con here. If they take my shield with a Rock Slide and then swap into Granbull, they can go for the crunch because Shadow on Shadow, it does about 70%. So they can just grab the shield and then swap into Granbull to take out my Charizard, or almost. But they decide to go up to the back-to-back Rock Slide, miscounting on my energy on Charizard. But we're just gonna win CMP with the Charizard, get off the blast burn. They do get to move with the Shadow Granbull. This will take out my Shadow Charizard. But we banked the move on Dunsparce earlier, so on very little HP, we get off this drill run, and that is a good game. Next game, lead into a Galarian Stunfisk. This is a matchup where a lot of people played wrong from Galarian Stunfisk. I think I'm going to explain that in the next game because I'm playing these 2 in a row. A lot of people go for the Earthquake the first time around, then they look at the health on the Dunsparce, and then they go for the Rock Slide. Because they think a Rock Slide is enough, meaning you will actually win the 0 shields, although you're not supposed to because a Rock Slide is not enough. So you can just pretty much bank at that, especially on a little bit lower elo, I think, at least if you have a very good Dunsparce. But this time around, I think I misplayed a little bit. I try to wait a turn and then catch a move on my Azumarill, but now they just come out of that matchup with a lot of energy. On Galarian Stunfisk, they had the 8 matches worth of energy, and then they bring in a Venusaur, which is not ideal. It is very nice that Azumarill, like Venusaur is one of the more frail grass types, so they are forced to shield or take a lot of damage from the Ice Beam. They do put up the shield and then they load up to back-to-back Frenzy Plants. I don't really want to take a Sludge Bomb on my Charizard, so I bring in my Dunsparce to pretty much sacrifice it. They go for a Frenzy Plant to take it out. We don't want to take a Sludge Bomb here, so I do have to shield up, I think. But this is very dangerous because the Galarian Stunfisk has a lot of energy stored. They go for the Sludge Bomb and then they swap into Sableye. We can go up to right before they get to the foul play after 6 and then go for the Blast Burn, which will take out the Sableye if they let it go, but they don't. They shield up the Sableye and then they go for a foul play. Now, I don't think I can take enough Shadow Claws. I need a Dragon Claw to take out the Stunfisk, so I can just load up to a Blast Burn plus a Dragon Claw because I think a Dragon Claw is enough to take out the Stunfisk, and then I have to wait and see up in the top right corner. If it's the Stunfisk coming in, I have to go for the Dragon Claw immediately on the CMP. If it's the Venusaur, I have to go for the farm down. It is the Venusaur. We farm it all the way down, come out with a Blast Burn for the Stunfisk, which we can throw in CMP, and as you can see by the health on this Stunfisk, I think a Dragon Claw would have been enough, but of course, we go for the Blast Burn, and that is a good game. I think here we're going to see someone go play the Stunfisk Dunsparce matchup correctly, but as I said, most people don't go play this correctly, at least not in lower elo. They go for an Earthquake and then a Rock Slide afterwards, meaning you will be able to take it out with Dunsparce. Go for the Earthquake, they always go for the Earthquake to say it the first time around, and then we can overfarm a little bit and then go for another drill run. I'm really looking forward to Shadow Dunsparce coming out because then 2 drill runs is enough to take out Stunfisk. But yeah, most people look at the health of this Dunsparce and they're like, Rock Slide is enough. This opponent does go for the Earthquake, but now they are dry. I'm hoping I can farm them down with Charizard. Realize I can't quite farm them down, so I catch the move on Azumarill instead. But now I have revealed my entire team, which is not ideal, so now my opponent can make a very informed decision on what to bring in on the Azumarill, knowing what I have in the back as well. We can overfarm quite a lot, and then go for the Ice Beam against the Noctowl, take 665 for the Sky Attacks for the Noctowl, so they are also overfarming quite a bit. They can make it 2-2 Sky Attacks before we make it to another Ice Beam, so they will throw the first one, and then they can't go for another one. I think maybe if they go for the Shadow Ball here, that might be enough to take out a Azumarill. It does a little bit more damage, but they go for the Sky Attack, meaning we can make it to another Ice Beam, but they're still switch locked. My switch timer is up, so I undercharge this Ice Beam to bring them into farm range for Charizard to get a little bit more of an energy head start, and then they bring in Sableye. I don't want the Stunfisk to catch because it's very, very low, so I'm very cautious with throwing in the middle of their Shadow Claws as we go for the bait with the Dragon Claw, as they shield it. I'm thinking I can get to 2 Blast Burns here, before they're going to be able to farm me down. They're not getting to 3 foul plays, so their play is to try and farm me down. Go for the first blast burn. They shield it. We can get to another blast burn. Wait a turn. Throw in the middle of the Shadow Claw. And we get off the blast burn to take out the Sableye. And then we can wing attack down the Stunfisk as well. And that is a good game. Next game lead into a Deoxys. Of course, any fighting type is absolutely terrible for Dunsparce. And because we have a Azumarill in the back, Deoxys is really not comfortable to see. They stay in to go for a Thunderbolt before dipping out, which I think is a pretty good play. Does a lot of damage to Azumarill, then they go for one more counter, and then they try to catch a move on Noctowl, which I'm not really sure about, because now we can't get to the first Ice Beam. And because they gave us so much energy, we will be able to make it to another Ice Beam, which they kind of have to shield if they want to make sure they can keep switch advantage, which most people who lead a fighter into Dunsparce do. But I'm absolutely fine with this. To just let Azumarill go. They go for the Sky Attack, doesn't do a lot of damage. Once again, this board point I'm getting with my defense on Azumarill is coming in very clutch. They have to go for another Sky Attack, leaving themselves with no energy. So now they have to go. They have to pretty much throw their Sky Attack immediately on bad timing on my Dunsparce in order to get it off. But now they will be 6 away from the next Sky Attack. As I say, it's 6-6-5, so they should be on the 6th cycle. So we can overfarm quite a lot and then go for the Rock Slide. The Deoxys did overfarm by 2 before swapping out, so I need to be aware of that. We bring in the Charizard, don't want to give the Deoxys any more energy, and they go for move after 5. So this is only a Psycho boost, but we still have to shield it. We do shield it up, and in the back, it's a Charm, Alolan Ninetales. We overfarm a lot with Charizard, and then go straight for the Blast Burn. No baiting here. Does the opponent shield it up? They do not. We take out the Alolan Ninetales. And then I'm not sure I can get to 2 Blast Burns, and I'm thinking in the moment if I can land even a Dragon Claw. I have the Drill Run stored. I think a Dragon Claw plus Wing Attacks plus Drill Run is enough. So I think that was the safe play. They shield up the first move. So we just make it to the Blast Burn instead, and that will of course take out the Deoxys, and that is a good game. I did lose to a Medicham and a Deoxys lead as well. I'm not winning against these a lot with Dunsparce leads. It is very difficult to come back from in general, but grabbing that shield advantage was very nice. Next game, lead into a Froslass, good lead for Dunsparce. Go for an Avalanche, and then we can make it 2 Rock Slide. We can make it to 2 Rock Slides before they get to another Avalanche. So we go for the first one to grab a shield. Froslass can live 1 Rock Slide, but we can make it to another Rock Slide before they get to an Avalanche. And he grabs another shield. I'm thinking that there's probably a pretty good likelihood for them to have like a Lantern in the back with Froslass leads, because that's a core I've been seeing like a little bit after Trevenant wasn't a good, like a big part of the meta. So I bring in a Azumarill to try and bring out the Lantern. My opponent goes for a very nice play to farm up to 100 energy with Froslass before dipping, because they have a very, very good matchup in the back against the Azumarill, like a very comfortable matchup with Lantern against the Azumarill. So they can just overfarm like crazy with Froslass, and Froslass with energy is just a menace to deal with. And because we're running Hydro Pump, of course, this matchup is a lot worse for Azumarill. My opponent gets very, very lucky to throw 1 Thunderbolt and then get the perfect farm down with Lantern. I don't know if it was lucky. Maybe they were just like calculating it perfectly. I don't know. But it looked like a little bit lucky. We of course have to shield this move from Lantern with Charizard. I just wanted to showcase how good of a play it was for my opponent to overfarm so much with Froslass in the beginning, because now they bring in the Froslass after grabbing 1 shield. They have so much energy, I just can't do anything. They just absolutely put me in jail with all of that energy. So that is a good game. Next game, lead into a Ninetales with Dunsparce, also a good lead. Takes 6 for the Weather Ball to try to catch a move on Sableye after loading up to a Weather Ball. And we're bringing a Azumarill, which is kind of just a habit of mine. But here we're going to see one of the main reasons why I don't think Hydro Pump Ice Beam is the way. I think you have to have Play Rough on Azumarill is basically my conclusion. I go for the Hydro Pump because I have to either go for a bait here, because an Ice Beam doesn't really do enough to the Sableye. It's so much more comfortable to have Play Rough, or a move that's enough to take it out, or put it into range where we can bubble it down. They baited the first time around. I thought they were going to go for the return the second time around. They will be able to outpace us if I don't throw this move, so I do have to go for the Ice Beam. And it just doesn't take out the Sableye, so now they will be able to get to the return. And because we don't have Play Rough, we lose switch advantage. But it's not like doom and gloom. We can bring in the Dunsparce afterward. They had a Ninetales in the lead. It's not like a terrible switch to lose. Go for the Rock Slide against the Trevenant that comes in. And then we're gonna swap into Charizard. It takes 7 for the Shadow Ball, of course. They swap into a Ninetales. They did farm up to 6, and it takes 10 for the Overheat, 15 for the Overheat plus Weather Ball. So I don't think they're getting to 15. They're on 11 right now. So if they are getting off an Overheat, it has to be the first time around. So shielding the first move is just a safe play here, because they're not getting to an Overheat afterwards. So now they're only going to be able to get to Weather Ball, which we can take just fine. Of course, if they had Size Shock, it would have been a different story. But now we can just farm them down, get to a Dragon Claw with the Charizard against Trevenant, which they're of course going to shield. Unfortunately, we can't make it to another Dragon Claw, but Dunsparce just has so much energy. We can get to another Rock Slide, which almost takes out the Trevenant, and now we can just roll out it down, and that is a good game. That was the last battle for today, and overall this team worked out alright. It wasn't the best team in the world, but I did gain a little bit of elo with it. I think I made a bit of a mistake with Azumarill's moveset. Play rough is mandatory in my opinion. Like, it was so tough to live without. One person counter swapped a Lantern onto my Azumarill, another person counter swapped a Dugong. I couldn't counter swap onto the Sableye, I couldn't counter swap it onto Medicham. Yeah, it was rough. I think you can use Ice Beam as the second move or Hydro Pump, and especially when Carbink becomes more popular and the Steel types are also becoming more popular because of it. I think I did make a good point with it in the beginning of the video. And also against the Shadow Alolan Sandslash, you can get a bulk point that allows Azumarill not just to win the 0 shields against it, but also win the 1 shield straight Hydro Pump with a very good Azumarill that gets that bulk point. Other than that, if you liked the video, leave it a like. If you're new here, subscribe to the channel as well. And as always, a big thank you to the members of the channel. I really appreciate your support. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.